So nice to be here in this wonderful city and talk about mobile games. I was just saying that to a couple of friends now. It's really impressive. So, how do we monetize our best users early? And should we even do it early? Who are best users anyway? These are some of the questions I've been asking myself on every single project I've ever been involved. You see, my background is from IP-driven games. So I help games that are either IP-driven or they want to be more IP-focused, get as much out of their paid users. So these are some of the key questions that we will be looking at. So today I will try to answer some key questions with you, like who are the best spenders in a free-to-play IP-driven game? And are there some kind of good tips we can provide in terms of content or price that we can give for our initial, welcoming offers? And if there is, could we optimize this for to achieve a higher conversion? So just want to make something clear that this is all based on my past experience and in no shape or form represents a particular game in Rovio. With this in mind, let's just dive right in. So again, something very clear I want to make. All spenders are not created equal. What I mean by that is that some spenders represent a much bigger contribution to the revenue. And this is very easily seen. If you take your spenders and you try to group them in a way by the day that they converted, it's very telling what you'll find. And by the way, when I talk about conversion, I mean the first time that a user will make an IAP. That magical moment that transforms a free user to a paid user. So if you do something like that, you'll find out that people who convert early end up being the most. Most of the spenders convert early. And they are the ones that end up being the vast majority of the revenue. So that must be telling us something. Another interesting exercise you can do if you want to pretty much even out the field a bit is look at one of the favorite metrics of everyone on free-to-play, right? LTV. So if you do the same exercise by looking at when your spenders convert, which day basically they convert, but look at the LTV, let's say 30 days following the day they convert, you'll find that there are three categories of spender pretty much. First and foremost, your best spenders, the ones that convert on the install days, the ones that I'll be focusing on today. Then you have some very good spenders around day 1 to day 3, day 4 sometimes. This, of course, depends on the game, on the genre, and the monetization strategy that you might have. And after that, you've got every other spender whose LTV is significantly lower. So looking at something like this, to me at least, it makes sense to focus on the best spenders, the ones with the highest LTV, the people who convert on the absolutely first day. If I didn't convince you so far with the previous argument, I'll give you 2 other key points. So in an IP-driven game, most of the spenders convert quite early. And I mean really early. If you combine that with the fact that, which is probably quite known, that a very few of your spenders will be the bulk of your total revenue, then I think makes sense to be focusing on them, and they are the ones that convert early. So to wrap up my first point, when it comes to optimizing revenue, especially for an IP-driven game, it is not about reaching the most spenders. It is more about maximizing revenue for a selective group of spenders. In other words, very early converters are simply worth more. Now, if we were to take a step back, how do we make sense of that? How do we make sense of the fact that if you convert on the first day that you play the game, you end up being one of the best spenders? Is this something telling? Is there something there? Well, I'll tell you one thing. It is not about utility. What I mean by that is that a user who plays the game on the first day and is willing to spend is not driven by some kind of obstacle they're trying to overcome, right? If you think a bit about what a game is on the first day, you probably go through some very easy stages. There's not really a lot of difficulty that you're trying. Like, there's not like a boss that you might be trying to overcome or a level that will be too difficult. So there's not much desire there to spend. So what is it then? And if you're thinking from another perspective, if you do spend early, whatever resources you're going to get, it will probably carry you quite a lot. While, for example, if you end up spending, let's say, on level 100, right? The game will have become so difficult that you will probably need to spend very soon after that. So one would say that actually it makes more sense if you convert a bit later to make a lot more repeating purchases. And we kind of like know that repeating purchases is what brings all the revenue. However, when looking at the data, we see the exact opposite. We see that the people who make like repeat purchases basically and a second purchase are the people who convert early again. And not only they do that, but they tend to do that much, much faster than their counterparts who convert, day 6, 7, or 8, or further down. So no matter how you slice it, it ends up that early converters end up being the best on every single metric. So again, from my perspective, it makes sense to focus on them. Now, you might be thinking, okay, then if it's not about utility, if they're not trying to overcome some obstacle, what is it? I would argue that it's a very unique characteristic of the type of player who converts very early. And that unique characteristic ends up being that they are the biggest fan of your game. They are the people who, if you check their metrics, they're all like super high, engagement super high. They are the people who are very excited about the game. The moment they log in, they probably found out, I don't know, through a friend, or they look at the app store and they're already quite enthusiastic about them. They are your biggest fan. And bear in mind, you don't make your best users convert. And I mean that literally. Anybody can walk away from a free-to-play game, right? Like there's no push there. Like I can just swipe off and like never come again. So what do we do then with our biggest fans? How do we make them convert if we don't force them to convert in a way? Where we capitalize on positive emotions. And what I mean by that is that when you get into a game in the beginning and you are one of those people, you're very enthusiastic, you're very passionate about the game you're playing, right? So what you're trying to do is you capitalize on those emotions, the ones that they're already feeling. Definitely not do the opposite of trying to provide some kind of scarcity of a resource, let's say, that they suddenly need to have, or some kind of frustration, let's say locking something behind the timer or having some kind of similar negative emotion. Because as I said before, the easiest thing when we play our games, and it's a free entertainment product, is to just swipe off and like never log in. Worse, even uninstall. So I much prefer to focus on positive emotions and like try and capture that enthusiasm and passion and transfer it into reasons and ways to convert. So then a bit more practical, right? How and when can we offer like our starting packs, let's say, and what should we include inside? Well, first and foremost, I really think that we should be quite proactive with our starting packs. I think that we should take every opportunity to put them in front of our users, not be afraid of it, and actually try and create as many opportunities as possible to do that. And the best times to do that is straight after an aspirational moment of content. For example, think of your game. If your game is about car racing, right? Did your user just race against a very cool looking car? They probably aspire to get that car. That's what they want to interact with. Did they just have a battle and they were assisted by an NPC who used a really cool spell? That's pretty much what they want to interact further with. Those are the type of users that will want to convert and like continue and pay to that game. So you need to convert that unique moment, that enthusiasm that they're feeling, into something that is in front of them that's quite valuable and that they will want to further play around with. definitely don't offer them something like 200 gems or something. At that point, it means nothing to them, right? They don't understand neither what 200 gems are or how to use them. They got into the game, I don't know, for the cute cats that they collect or for the dragons that they can merge into something bigger. Dragons makes a lot more sense when you're trying to capture enthusiasm. That's pretty much what they heard about this game or what they found, and that's what they want to interact with. So a key takeaway here is that our biggest fans end up being our biggest spenders. And what they want to do in our games is engage further with the product. That is the reason that they're converting. Again, I'm focusing here entirely not on repeat purchases, but the first purchase, the one that makes someone a paid user. So they want to engage further with the product that we're offering, and maybe they want to engage in different ways. They want a more premium experience, whatever that could be. And it's definitely about looking at what's iconic, what's thematic about your games. Like if you think about the car racing example, it's probably about the cars, right? They can get gems or some kind of, I don't know, other experience like in every other game, but it's the cars they came for. It's the racing part that they came for. So before I leave, I'll offer something about prices as well. So my go-to strategy when it comes to prices and bundles and all that is that you should never leave money on the table. That means that if you look at the psychological profile of the people who convert very early, they're not driven by price considerations. They will be much more willing to pay a higher price if you offer them more value. So when it comes to initial offers and bundles and welcoming offers, do not try to make things cost less, at least in my opinion, just to appeal to more people. It is much more preferred for them to offer more value at a higher price, because all you're doing at that moment is you're compromising your total revenue. A very easy example to check that out is if you had like a $4 starting pack and you were thinking, okay, I'll discount it 50%, I'll put it on $2 to try and get more people to convert. That sounds like reasonable. You do that, do you think that you will get twice as many people to convert? I doubt it. So what you did at that moment is you compromised your total revenue. And of course, you can pretty much do the opposite. And if all of that didn't convince you, I would offer another exercise. Go and check your payers based on the first IAP they made on the price point. You might figure out that the people that converted on the higher price point end up being the ones that have the highest LTV. So these are kind of like insights that we're trying to draw, try to draw from like every game that I work on, and of course share it with like every game that I work on in the studios, and obviously with Ruby Games as part of like the Rovio vlog. And of course, all of this would be highly helpful if you had the infrastructure to pretty much identify those users, offer them what they want, at the price they want, and at the time they want. And we're very lucky at Rovio to have this infrastructure, and of course share it again with all the studios that I have. And with that, I want to thank you all for like listening, and a special thanks to Alex Macmillan, who like really inspired that kind of thinking. Thanks. I'll be around if you want, and if you're shy or anything, you can just find me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.